Hello, everybody. This is Ajumaja Sante Goodman. I'm the president of Black Advancement Incorporated. And what we have before us is the website, or as I love to just shout out, www.blackadvancement.com. And as you can see, we have several different things that you can go to here. You can contact us. You can view our debates page where we do our roundtables and symposiums. So we have them all recorded. You can go to the donations page. We are a nonprofit after all. Our events page, see what we're up to, our own background story as far as our history, at least up until about a couple of years ago. You can also check out some other cool programs that we have that we started within the Comet Zoomcast network. You can see our mission statement and our vision, solutions, which is probably the most important tab of all of them, to be quite honest with you, and our topics tab, where we come up with the ideas of things that we would want to debate and discuss and ultimately find a solution for. I would be remiss if I didn't also point out the Black People You Should Know tab over here, the book review tab, which is BA Books of the Month. Every month we come up with another book that's suggested for people to read, and also the BA recommended websites, which basically promotes Black owned businesses. But back to why we're here today. We're here today to talk about the In History section, which is our newest section on the website. And basically, the In History section is basically to teach people the history that they may not have gotten when they were kids, but more so the history that kind of helps to explain why things are the way they are in present day. It's almost like an elevator pitch for Black people to explain where the systematic racism hit and how that really impacted and affected people. The one and only entry that we have right now in this section is the legacy of the lost narrative. Um, the legacy of the lost narrative, of course, is about the Confederates' loss in the Civil War and how they used that loss or spun that loss into a valiant effort to be able to do to be able to spread the gospel of these people weren't necessarily bad and that these people should be remembered as heroes. They did this using the six tenets of it. Succession was not slavery caused succession, not slavery caused the Civil War. Blacks were faithful, loyal slaves that weren't prepared for freedom. The Confederacy was defeated only because they were overwhelmed by the Union. Confederate soldiers were heroic and saintly. The most heroic of all these people were Robert E. Lee, and Southern women were there, as a meant to carry on and be loyal to the Confederate cause and go on to sacrifice for them, which is something that they did. As a matter of fact, even nowadays, one of the bigger organizations around the country is the UDC in terms of celebrating this type of understanding, and that's the United Daughters of the Confederacy, or the Confederation, I should say. But these people actually, how people have started tearing down all these statues and stuff like that in the South, which they started erecting a little bit shortly after the Civil War, and even more so during the Jim Crow era as well. A lot of those statues were funded and built up by this group, the UDC, which is one of the direct correlations from this. But you got to understand something when you're looking at something like a UDC or in the lost cause narrative. These people didn't only just promote it in a way of saying, oh, we're patriots, we're this, we're that, you should believe in our cause, and so on and so forth. These people, they push for these policies. They were given more leniency than they probably deserved, than they definitely deserved, I should say, for being traitors to the nation. And because of this, and because of this leeway that they were given, and even some of the people who were in charge, of course, think the vice president to President Lincoln, think, people like Woodrow Wilson, think a plethora of different people who were put in political power that also had this belief that the Confederates weren't necessarily wrong for what they were doing. And you have to understand what that means in terms of having this lost cause narrative and the impact that it has on society as a whole. It is the type of thing that festers and creates the type of atmosphere that leads to an insurrection on January 6th, to be quite honest. Um, and it's the thing that leads to propaganda that became actually world renowned and really famous. There's plenty of people who've probably watched Gone with the Wind 1,000 times and have never made the correlation of that story being a lost cause narrative story, a story about how the Confederacy really wasn't that bad and that these people were being mistreated and so on and so forth. And the biggest blockbuster, or the first blockbuster in the history of film, was The Birth of a Nation, which was about the Klan being the heroes, which also, again, was the part of this lost cause narrative. So ultimately, here's my opinion piece at the very, very end. and I'll leave you guys to read it. You guys are all smart, intelligent people. But long story short is you had the people like the UDC going around educating their children on this, you know, and then you had the laws to back them up because these people were also indoctrinated with the idea of the lost cause narrative. This caused people who were then put in elective office to purposefully disenfranchise Black Americans forever until the 1965 Act, and for many places, years and years after that, even. So much so that they had to do things like the Voting Rights Act and things of that nature. This has led not only to the the destruction in some ways of the Black community, or at least it's taken a big part in the destruction and the systematic racism within this country. But it's also, when you really take a drawback and look at the country as a whole, it's taken away from America. Like, it's taken away from what America could be. America, think about how much further we could have gotten if we allowed all of our citizens to have all the rights, to have the ability to be able to do things as every other person is to see fit, to have the rights to do the, you know, pursuit of happiness and life and liberty and all that stuff. We didn't have that really until like 1965, and that's being generous. Um, so, all of these policies weren't only policies that were enacted by local governments, they were enacted by the US government as well, the federal government as well. So, I mean, like, when you're talking about the systematic racism and the things that have really bombarded and hurt the Black community, one of the bigger causes is the lost cause narrative itself. Um, I'd like to shout out a couple of different people for my sources. Uncivil Podcast. They haven't come out with a new one in a long time, but they were a really good source for this. A couple other sources here, stuff to you, different websites that you could go to learn a little bit more about the things like the United Daughters of the Confederacy. And yeah, man. So that's kind of our segment. You can check it out. Let us know what you think. Comment about it, and comment about this. And yeah, it's pretty cool, right? So we hope to come up with a few more of these and get you guys' feedback. Until then, keep reading, peace, and advance.